Let's get into the CMA. And today we're going to be going through the 5 steps to success. Number one, we're going to talk about truly understanding what a CMA is. We're going to talk about how we research the property and make sure we do that effectively. We're going to build the CMA on 6 core components. Then I'm going to teach you different ways of packaging the CMA, because there is some definitely different ways to package the CMA. And then lastly, I'm going to talk to you about a powerful way to deliver a comparative market analysis. All right. So let's jump in with first talking about what is a CMA. All right. When we talk about a CMA, one of the big pieces here is it helps examine comparable properties in the same area. Now, what I want you to have your mindset wrapped around is that all we're using this tool for is to help the seller come to a logical decision of how to set a competitive initial asking price. So you see that star down there. I want you to write that word down, initial asking price. We're not creating a CMA to create a final sales price. None of us that I know have that power of looking into that magic, crystal ball and going, you know what? I've done all the data. This house is going to sell at $562,500. That's not possible. When we're communicating to our sellers, we're really going to focus on creating an initial asking price. And when delivered correctly, we're going to drive that price up. We're going to get tons of buyer attraction and buyer activity, and that's going to result in the highest sales price possible. All right. So we've got to make sure that we're really diving that in. We're not trying to set a final sales price. This is not an appraisal. We're not trying to go, well, you have 2-car garage. One of the houses has 1-car garage. So that should be a $4,700 difference in pricing. None of us are appraisers, and that's not what a market analysis is for. It's to establish an initial asking price to create as much buyer activity as possible to get the home sold. That's what we're doing today. Okay. All right. First of all, we have to first understand that in pricing properties, there are 2 major selling factors that determine the valuation: price and time. I always make sure that we drive home this point. If you price any property aggressively enough, it will sell. On the other side of that, if you give any property enough time, it will sell. In our world, though, the clock is usually ticking in regards to time, because we have a signed listing agreement that is either giving us 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, 12 months to get this property sold. Once you understand that, then we have to understand that pricing is the most powerful tool that we have of everything we do as a professional listing specialist. You could be the greatest stager, the greatest marketer, the greatest YouTuber, the greatest, broker open cupcake maker. You could be amazing at all of that. If the property is priced correctly, it's going to sell. Okay? That's what we have to make sure that we're understanding here. And what I want to have you leave with today is being able to provide that consultation to your clients. So when you're meeting with them and you're talking about price, you don't put yourself in a position where you overpromised and underdelivered. What I find is most agents don't fight hard enough on the beginning for pricing. And then just week after week, I can see the misery and going, I've got to call my seller and I've got to get a price adjustment. And oh man, it's going to be tough. And they told me they don't want to reduce, that they'd rather burn the house down than sell it at that price. And we don't want you to have to live in that world of anxiety. This should be a very easy process. And once you understand the techniques and the strategy, you won't be in that position to have that conversation week after week. Okay. So price and time. So let's talk about step 2. Once we understand those concepts, now we've got to start constructing our research to provide a powerful CMA. When we research the property, the first thing we're always going to do is we're going to start with thinking about, what does the seller look at to figure out what they think it should be priced at first. It doesn't mean we're going to price it at that. It doesn't mean that we're going to ever come near those numbers. But I need to know if the seller is looking at Zillow, Redfin, any other website, realtor.com, and it's providing them an online valuation. I need to know what that online valuation is because that number is probably already plugged in my seller's head, and it gives me an understanding of where I'm going to need to have to win that battle to get them from fantasy land to reality selling land. So you're always going to start with thinking like, what's the eyes of the seller looking at? The next thing we're going to do is, of course, we want to do an aerial view on Google. We want to do a street view. We want to have as much information. I want to know what the property backs up to. I want to know if right next door to it, there's a crack house or there's, whatever there might be. I want to know all of these different things so that I have a good understanding of, does it back up to power lines? Is there a train? Is it on a major highway? Does it back up to a beautiful pond, or is it on the 9th hole of the golf course? We've got to make sure we understand all of the outbound factors of that property. Then the next thing is I'm going to, of course, research the tax report. And I know we have people from all over the country joining us, and thank you for joining us. Whatever your MLS system does, you should have some sort of, we call it a public record report. And we're going to go through and verify all of the information on the public record report. Now, when I'm on my phone call, and that's not this class, we have something that we call a seller profile. And I believe Anna will be nice enough to possibly share that later on in the program. But we ask a ton of questions because, as we all know, that public record report is often incorrect, right? They finished out the basement and you didn't know about it. They added a four-stall barn. They built XYZ, whatever it might be, these additions to the property. So in our seller profile, before you start putting together your market analysis, you're going to go through all of these questions to make sure you don't have any surprises. You don't want to walk into this listing appointment and get caught off guard. You thought it was 2,000 square feet finished and it happens to be 3,500 square feet finished. That is not what we want to do. So you're going to verify the public record report, run that against the conversation that you've had with the seller, make any adjustments there to make sure that it's accurate. The next thing we're going to do, we're going to evaluate possible pricing impacts. Okay, so again, if it's a mountain property, a lot of times when we're talking about that, it's going to be a big difference on view, right? Like, what is the view? What does the property back up to? Does it have dirt road access? All these different things. If for some of you, you're in a beach market or whatever it is, you know that the difference of pricing can be greatly different if that property faces east or west, and if it's facing the beautiful ocean, or is it facing the city? We got to take all those things into consideration. Of course, we have to figure out busy streets. And I'm going to talk to you about some techniques on if your home is on a busy street versus an inner neighborhood property, how you figure out that difference. High rises, right? Usually, generally in a high rise, the higher the floor, the higher the price, right? You better view, higher the price. Not always, but generally that's usually how it works. I always tell the story of here in Denver, the Four Seasons high rise. The difference in price of the western facing unit versus the eastern facing unit, $5 million. The western facing unit sold for $10 million. The eastern facing unit sold for $5 million. That's a $5 million difference in price because of view. So we're going to try to make sure that we take all of these things into factor all these things in as best we can to give an idea of what would a buyer pay for this property in today's market. The next thing, we've got to start building our CMA. So now we've done all the research, we've looked at everything possible. Now we're going to start putting this beautiful, powerhouse tool together. The first component, and these are the 6, is first we're going to start with what we call our buyer attraction pyramid. I'm going to show you that and what that looks like in detail. The second, you're going to have your public record report. The third, an aerial map. And the aerial map is just going to show them, hey, here's where your comps are. Here's where apples to apples, right? This is where you are. This is where the other comps are. It's easy. We're going to have comps in a photo one-pager. So with our comparable market analysis, we've got to show them the details of the property. We've got to show them photos so they can go, mine's nicer, similar, or mine's uglier than this comp, right? And we've got to make sure that they can do that logically. And then my favorite tool in the entire arsenal that I'm going to show you how to leverage today at the highest level is what we call a single line stat page. Now, I've used millions of different MLSs over the course of my career. Every single MLS has a version of this. You're going to see one from our MLS just to show as an example, and then you're going to go back and figure out how to put yours together. And then the last thing is our time on market graph. And it's going to tie the whole thing and bookend this whole process. Now, a lot of people ask me, Brendan, why do you use Cloud CMA, or do you use all these other CMA making programs? I'll be very honest with everyone. I've tried every single program. I have found that the best way over my 20 plus years of doing this is to do this directly from your local MLS. These companies that merge information and try to make it look pretty and do all of these different things, what is usually lost in this process is two things. Number one, the seller wants to look at you as a professional agent and know that you have access to this secret tool called the MLS. When you start trying to beautify all of these things and try to make it look like a book report, it takes away the value of you going, look, I know all the inside data. You kind of want it to look grittier, like in a way. So they're going, wow, this guy or gal's an inside pro. They've got the secret sauce. The second reason that we don't use these companies is they don't provide the most accurate and detailed information that the seller's going to need to understand. Some of them give ranges of prices, and they'll be like, based on the comparables, your house is worth 400 to 450. That doesn't help me. I'm not trying to give my seller a range of 400 to 450 and being like, where do you guys want to be? Let's pin it in there somewhere. So I don't use ranges. I go into every listing presentation, and please write this down, having an exact idea of what this home will sell for in 24 hours guaranteed. I'm going into every listing presentation with the exact number of what this home would sell for in 24 hours guaranteed. And what I want you to think about in that mindset is you're having to put your life on the line. There's a bomb ticking down within 24 hours, and you'd be putting your seal of approval going, if I priced it at this, it is guaranteed to sell in 24 hours. Not, you know what, I hear this all the time, Brendan, we could probably go a little bit higher. I mean, the staging's really cute. If we just priced it maybe 10 higher, I think we could get it. What do you think? That is not the world we want to live in. We are not trying to live in a world of having a pricing conversation of going, ooh, it might get there. I mean, ooh, let's take a shot at this, right? Let's roll those dice and go, woo, maybe it'll hit. I don't know. No, you as a professional real estate consultant are going in to advise the seller that this is the price that'll cause it to sell. Every dollar we go above that is going to put them at risk of not only not getting an offer, but eventually having to lower the price, getting lowball offers, which is going to end up being a lower net outcome from them, period. And we'll show you how we use these graphs and charts to explain that. So that's a critical piece to understand is you're going in 24 hours. That doesn't mean you're going to leave that appointment with that price, because there's going to be conversations. The seller is still their house, right? You could be like, it's going to sell at $1 million and they want $1 million too. We're going to talk about pricing conversations a little bit later. At the end of the day, it's their house. You're a consultant advising them on why some of the decisions they may make are going to hurt them. Okay. All right. Let's talk about the first piece, is what we call buyer attraction. Okay. So this buyer attraction pyramid, this is going to be the first piece in your comparative market analysis. I'm going to show you what this all looks like when it's all put together in a beautiful format. Like for us, we have a cover page with our company logo on it. I'll show you that, right? But you're going to have this whole thing start out with our buyer attraction pyramid. So what this does is it sets the expectation and establishes the goal of the pricing conversation and shows the seller the potential risk of overpricing. Now, to read this, right, it just says the goal is to attract as many qualified buyers to the home as possible. A powerful pricing strategy creates a buyer frenzy, resulting in more views online, more qualified showings, and multiple offers because buyers are competing for your home, netting you the most money possible. All right. So what we're trying to get clear with this graph is that if we price just even 10% over market value, we're going to lose 30% of the interested buyer pool, right? That's what we're trying to get across here. So when I have this conversation, I always try to explain to them that when we're at market value or slightly below market value, we're going to create the most buyer energy. And I want you to write this line down. It's my favorite line in talking about pricing. Mr. Seller, I would rather put you in a position to turn down offers than not receive any offers at all. I'd rather put you in a position to turn down offers than not receive any offers at all. Okay. So we're first going to set the understanding of pricing is all about attracting buyers to the property, creating a frenzy. Once there's social proof and people know, and we have a program that we call Sold in 65 that creates this frenzy and this funnel into a 1 hour showing window that gets people to put these crazy offers in, that gets the price driven up. That's where the seller wins. If we set the price at the highest possible weirdo number that we can think of, and then if no one comes, we go, great, so we set this price, we've been on the market a week, no one's come, I guess we should drop it. I don't know, what do you think, 50 grand? 20 grand, 10 grand? I don't know. What do you think? And as soon as you do that, the first thing that you've done is you've lost trust with the seller. I want you to be the hero in this situation. I don't want you to be the zero. I want you to sell properties in the first weekend. I want the seller to go, wow, that was amazing. Your strategy worked. You're high-fiving. They're under contract. I have yet to meet a seller that goes, you know what? I really hope I can stay on the market for 6 weeks. I have to keep my house in pristine showing condition, and then eventually get beat up on price over time until I finally drop it low enough to get an offer. And oh, by the way, thank you, agent, for taking me through that whole process. That sounds kind of terrible, right? So let's set this up to be heroes. Let's really come from that mindset of we're going in to be like, dun, 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 I got you. Let's go. Okay. So buyer attraction. The next is we're going to have our public record report. I'm going to show you how to present this as we go through it. So I've got to confirm the stats with them again. So their square footage, baths, easements, lot size, all of these things, I'm going to have my public record report. The next thing is I'm going to have an aerial map. So I'm going to show them where my comps are in comparison to the other comps. Obviously, as we know, one neighborhood could be separated by one street, and the price in those homes could be dramatically different, even though the square footage is exactly the same. Maybe one neighborhood's gated. Maybe it has a golf course. So we got to be careful in making sure that we're showing apples to apples. And if we're using a property outside of the general neighborhood, then we have to make sure that we're going to explain to them why we included it. But they need to see that aerial map. All right. Then the next thing, we're going to have comparable properties. Pretty simple. Here's some highlights that you always want to make sure. You're only going to use sold properties in the last 6 months. Why? Just pretend we're in a classroom. Tanil.
Because that's all that the appraisers can use.
That is exactly right, Tanil. Yes, because appraisers can't go further back than 6 months. So we know that a majority of these properties are going to be bought with financing if we can't go further back than 6 months. And plus, the market, the reason appraisers don't go further back than 6 months is because the market was completely different a year ago than it was 6 months ago. Okay. So use that as a guideline to make sure you're understanding that those comps, the seller will be like, well, you didn't include my neighbor, he sold, back in 2020 for 2.4 million. Yeah, that was back in, you're going to say not like that. You're going to do a really nice thing, but I completely understand. But Mr. Seller, the reason I'm using these comparables is because even if we could convince someone that pricing mattered, the appraiser would not be able to utilize it. So it wouldn't help us in your cause anyway. Of course, you're going to be looking at year built, value of above square footage versus below square footage. Property type, again, we're going to try to do ranches and ranches, tri-levels and tri-levels, condos and condos, townhomes and townhomes. If you're using a property mix from outside of your property specification, then you better be prepared to explain the difference when you're utilizing that comparable. Lot size, of course, that's going to matter greatly. Apples to apples on square footage. What it backs up to. So again, right, we're going to make sure that we're noting all of these things. So I'm looking at each property and I'm just trying to figure out, again, is this subject property better than my comparable, similar to my comparable, or not as good or strong as my comparable? That's all we're really trying to do. Community amenities, of course, right? Again, if you're showing one house and it has pool and tennis courts and golf, all this. Also a highlight that you need to think about, if it's in a 55 plus community, that's going to be a different price point than another house that's outside of a 55 plus community. So we got to take those into consideration. HOA fees, all of those different things. In high rises, we're also going to consider parking spaces. We're going to consider storage. Is the parking deeded or non-deeded? All of those things are going to have a factor in us being able to deliver this information. And then we're going to organize them highest to lowest. Okay, so in your market analysis, I'm going to show you here in a second, you're going to organize those highest to lowest. You're going to have the photo one pager. So you're going to have a comp and then a one pager with photos. Now in the MLS, you could have 4 pages of photos. If you want to go and print all those pages and have your brokerage charge you 35 cents a copy, knock yourself out. That's your deal. I love it. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm trying to make sure that my market analysis isn't 700 pages. So usually I can get enough of the style of that home from a 1-page photo report instead of a 6-page photo report. Okay. We're going to highlight the special features of the competing homes. Seller sees difference in finishes, supports the pricing conversation, and shows, back on the other first page, shows the commission being offered. Make sure that you're showing the broker showing report, because I'm going to talk about why you need to show what the commission is that's being offered. You also want to be able to highlight the broker notes, because there might be things in there like this home was sold with a transferable loan, a loan, or it could be a warranty is included. There could be all kinds of special features. They could be offering a $10,000 concession. All of those things you need to know and be able to communicate to the seller to explain the pricing of that property. Okay. Single line stat page. Delicious. My favorite report. Okay. Every MLS has something similar to this. And I know someone on here is going to be like, mine doesn't. I'm sorry. Call them and tell them to get it. Take a picture of this, say, I need this page. Right. But almost all of them have this. What the single line stat page does is it takes away the emotion from the properties and makes it based on numbers and finished square footage, total square footage, list price to sales price ratio. I'll show you a bigger copy of this as we talk about how to present it. But it's a powerful tool that takes emotion out of the conversation and goes, let's talk numbers. There's 3 actives, 2 under contract, and here are the last 4 that closed, or whatever the number is that you have that makes sense for your comps. And I'll talk about that here in a moment. You said that you wanted 600,000. If you wanted 600,000, or if you want 600,000, if we divided that by your finished square footage, that's going to put you at about $350 a square foot. If you look at the solds, there hasn't been a sold that's sold for over $300 a square foot. So Bob, Susie, I love both of you. Help me help the buyers get there. Where's that extra $50 a square foot coming from? And notice when I have this, anytime I talk price, I'm whispering like I'm taking somebody off of a jump ledge, right? It's like, just come inside. You're fine. We're going to work through it. You're all good, right? Pricing is dangerous. You want to lose a listing, or you want to have a listing that doesn't sell, you will lose it in this pricing conversation. And then, of course, estimated net sheets, which we teach in our full program, right? But I can't tell you how important this conversation is, and the way you handle it, your tonality, you've got to be on the side of the seller the entire time, because you're on the side of the seller, but you're secretly trying to slap reality into you're like, psh, 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 but you're doing it with data, and you're doing it with consultation. All right. That's all we're trying to do, is take somebody from crazy town to making a logical decision so they don't do something stupid with their price that's going to hurt them in the long run. Okay. And then a perfect CMA, you're going to have 3 actives, 3 under contracts, and 6 closed sales. As you see here in this market analysis, this one has 3, 2, and 4. I don't put comps into a property if I don't think it supports the conversation. I've had plenty of market analysis where I've not had a pending, right? Maybe there's nothing under contract in that area. It's in a remote area or something's weird. There's plenty of times where maybe I've had 1 closed sale because it's a 700-acre farm in the middle of nowhere, and there just hasn't been a lot of those similar type properties that have sold. What I'm going to teach you is you want to continue to focus on the actives, and you want to make sure you have enough actives, because if you think about pricing, all it really comes down to is that you're trying to position your listing to be the best overall option for what buyers are able to look at and see today, so they make a decision to purchase yours next. So you're kind of ranking your property. Is mine in second position overall in 80213? Maybe it's a zip code if you don't have enough comps. If it's a neighborhood, am I the best overall value with the active competition in Ravenna or whatever neighborhood you're in, right? Am I the best overall option to be the next one that produces an offer, to the point where the buyer's looking at this and they're going, it's the best price, it's the best looking, it's the best size, it's got the best lot, it's got the best view. Okay. If your property doesn't have those, let's say your property backs up to a train, right? And they're like, the seller's going to say, Brendan, I don't even mind the train. It really just kind of lulls us to sleep at night. It's super, super comforting. Well, that train is going to have a factor on the pricing. So if the other two actives that you're competing against, when you hit the market, don't have a train backing up to them, how much difference in pricing are you going to need to have to make up for the train noise, right? That's what we're going to talk about here. It's all you're trying to think about is, where do I fit in with the active competition? Okay. All right. The next and final component is what we call our time on market graph. Okay. If there's one tool in here that I can tell you will change your life, is this time on market graph. Now, this is for the Denver metro area. I will send out an email, because I'm not going to try to explain it now, of how you can run and prepare this graph for your own area or your own region. It's a very simple process, but it does take a little bit of work to make this graph. Okay. So when we talk about time on market, now just pretend we went through this final single line stat page, and they go, Brendan, I get it. I understand that all the other ones are at 300 a square foot, but why don't we just start a little bit higher? And then we could always come down later. What's the risk there? Boom, that's the risk, right? The risk is that we know in the first 7 days that you're going to have the highest opportunity to get 100% of your asking price. After that 7th day, you're already going to be dropping down 2.1%. After 15 days, 96.2, right? 22 days, you're going to drop down to 92% of list price to ask price ratio. So the way I like to explain this in way you pitch this is I go, and Mr. Seller, you can see by the 50th day, 85.5%. That means if you were listed at $1 million, you just lost $150,000 in value. So every day, and write this other phrase down, every day you're on the market, you're a depreciating asset. Every day you're on the market, you become a depreciating asset, meaning that every buyer's looking at your property going, if it hasn't sold and it didn't sell in that first week or that first weekend in our 65-hour program, then what the heck is wrong with it? There must be something wrong. And you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to wait it out and see if they end up doing a price drop. And then if they do a price drop, then maybe I'll go take a look at it. And then if I do go take a look at it, I'm going to give them a low ball offer because no one else is interested. Time matters so much in pricing properties and getting the highest price. It's very rare, and I'm not saying it's an impossibility, that I've looked at a market analysis and a property that's been on the market for over 2 weeks has sold for over or at asking price. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. It is a very, very small percentage of the time. So we're really trying to help the seller understand buyer psychology. And I use that a lot in my presentation. Mr. Seller, I'm just trying to help you understand buyer psychology. Let's put you and start thinking like a buyer. Once they see that, they go, oh, I get it, Brendan. You're right. Yeah, okay. So it would be not smart to list at $1.2 million if you what you're showing us, the market is telling us that the price should be at $1 million, because if we did, this is how much money we can lose over time. Okay. I'm going to take a quick pause there because that was 33 minutes of straight fire. Any questions of just that first piece?
I do have a question, Brendan. What happens when you have sellers who are just married to their price, and you can give them all the logic possible, you can explain it to them why their number is off, and they just don't want to hear it? Like, how do you handle that?
I love it. So in our program, we have 2 checkdowns. First one, I call it a temperature gauge. So if they want to price at a number that doesn't make any sense, we have a coming soon period, and I know all of you have different MLSs. I go, look, I want you guys to win. I'm showing you what the market's telling us, but if you want to list at 1.2 and we know the market's at 1 million, we can go into coming soon status at 1.2. Myself and my organization are going to get the property out to everyone. We're going to light up the phones. We're going to get all the excitement. If we don't have any interest or activity, would it be fair, and I love using that word, would it be fair, Susie and Bob, if before we took the property active in the MLS, we revisited the price? And they always say yes. Okay. So I have the coming soon temperature gauge as one of my better pieces. The second piece to that, Katie, to answer that question is anytime you take a listing, you are taking a business decision, right? You are making a business decision, deciding upon, if I take this, I'm deciding on two things. What is my seller's motivation? Because if we list this even overpriced and they have to sell, then at some point they're going to have to adjust. And I'm going to do my drop it like it hot Monday, right? Drop it like it's hot. That's what we do every Monday when we do our price adjustments, right? We're going to drop the price on Mondays and we're going to bring that price down. But if there's no motivation there, they're like, you know what, if I get my price, then yeah, then we'll move to this other house. I was literally last night, I was talking to one of Catherine, my wife's friends here at the club we live at. And she was talking about, first of all, my wife was upset because she didn't list with my wife. And that was a whole nother conversation, but I'm not going to go into that, right? She goes, yeah, we decided to list. And if we get our number, we're going to sell because there's another house in the neighborhood that we want to buy. But if we don't get our number, we'll just let it sit or we'll take it off the market. Now, this is a $2.9 million listing, right? It's a $2.9 million listing. The house they want to buy is $4 million. Again, wife's furious, but that's a whole nother conversation, right? $2.9 million listing. Think about the marketing that this agent has to spend and do to do all of this to make this house sell. And it's only if they get 2.9 because they can't afford the $4 million house. Would you take that business decision? I don't know, right? It's like, if you've got enough in the bank and you're going to bankroll that, maybe you do. It's like, is it worth the risk? Ooh, those are the decisions we have to make as business professionals. If you're starting out, I'm saying it's probably not a risk you want to take because you're going to be out time, money. They're still going to want you to do all of the magic. But if the number 2.9 and we know that the market's 2.7, I'm not taking that listing. I'm going to say, I'm sorry. It's just, I would be doing you a disservice by doing this. And I've walked out of listing appointments that I've later taken the listing because I walked out and I said, nicely, I said, unfortunately at this price, I can't do anything to help you. I'm sure other agents have lied to you, but I'm not a liar. I know what the market is. I provided you all of the data. If you decide that you want to list this at a price that's going to cause it to sell, then I'm here to help you and I'll drive up that price and get as many people in here as possible. But if you're stuck on this number, then I'm not the right fit for you. I wish you a good day. A good day to you, sir or madam, right? And then I leave and I brush off all their dog's hair and all the snacks that I sat in at their kids' table and all that gross stuff. And I don't think about it again. All right. So, Anna.
Yeah, we've got a great question in the chat box, and I'm hoping before we move on, you can address this because I'm imagine that more than one person is having this question go through their mind. So Chris asks, showing previous sales commission, if they're consistently lower than what you normally charge, isn't showing that to the seller going to backfire?
If they're consistently lower than what you charge. So in our MLS, they're only showing the buyer side compensation. So you would only be seeing the buy side compensation. And so when they're seeing that buy side compensation, I'm going to go, my next step after the CMA is when we go into our estimated net sheets, when I have a very powerful conversation with them about our commission strategy, then I'm able to highlight that. So yeah, it wouldn't really reflect the selling compensation because in our MLS anyway, and I'm not sure in your MLS if it shows what lists commission is for, but it's just showing what we're offering out to the buyer. I hope that made sense. Adam.
Hey, Brendan. Yeah. So I have a question. If they want to list at a certain price and you are going to be doing the marketing, do you have them sign something or go over like, okay, well, if it doesn't sell within this much time, we have to drop it this much, or something like that?
Yeah, Adam, and I get this question a lot. So let's dissect that question because it's a great question, Adam. So think about this. What we're basically telling to the seller is, hey, look, at this price, it's probably not going to sell, but I'm going to do everything I can. And if not, I'm going to force you in a position to adjust your price at a later time, whether that's 2 weeks, 30 days, or whatever it is. Is that seller going to be happy with you when that time comes? Right? I mean, so I've never done that. I've heard that technique before, and people are like, oh, and I'm going, no. I go, what I need to do is what that is telling the seller is that I really don't believe that this is going to sell at this price. And because I don't believe in it, that later on you're going to be mad at me because it didn't happen. So let's go down that path. What instead I'd rather do, Adam, is I'd rather on the front side win this battle and this war in that kitchen room or in that dining room table, and just go, here's the data. We can try your price. And again, I always like to say that during a coming soon period, or we can try the initial price. And I don't ever do that very often unless it's close enough to make sense, because I'm not going to lose this listing over 10 grand, but I'm also not going to take it if there's 60, 70, 80 grand over. It's not going to make any sense. So great question. But yeah, I think you just make yourself look like you're not the hero. You're just setting yourself up for being like, great, so now it didn't sell, and great, I guess contractually we have to drop the price. So, and usually what comes up at that point is they go, well, Brendan, we understand that now we're adjusting the price, but I think you need to adjust your commission. It's a great question. I'll do one more and then I'll go on and then I'll stay around for the end for a bunch of these. So Andrew, what do you got?
It still comes down to motivation. I mean, for me, I'll take a higher price and I'll tell them the truth. I'll tell you the truth now, and not what you want to hear, but I'll take it if they have a really strong motivation.
I love it, Andrew. He's dead right. Yeah, exactly. So down in Miami, Andrew's like, exactly right. If they have motivation, then you're just estimating the fact of how good are my pricing adjustment conversations going to be every week to get them to where they need to be. I'm being very honest. You're not going to sit here and like, it's not like debate club. You're not going to be arguing with the seller. You're going to be trying to educate. If they go 1-2 and you know it's $1 million, it's a business decision based upon motivation, based upon, I mean, again, I've had houses too that smell like weed, or have the people raise boa constrictors in the house and it smells like dead rats. There's all these other factors that I'm weighing in. I'm like, I'm going to sell the boa constrictor rat house, $200,000 overpriced. I don't know. That's a call. It's a business call, right? So I'm just trying to take into all of those factors. And like you said, motivation being the biggest one. Excellent questions. All right. Let me take us through and then I'll stick around at the end. All right. So now we're going to package this beautiful, tool all together. So in packaging this CMA, we have a couple of different options. Number one, you can do this digitally. And I'll talk about the pluses and minuses of that. So I'll show you here in a moment what we use a program called Issue. It's a digital brochure program that splices data together and makes it look like a fun little flip through magazine. Okay. So if you want to do that, you can. You're going to have the laptop there. You're going to be flipping through comps. You can show them that. Usually in this pricing conversation, when you get really good at this, you're not really having to show them everything. You're going to highlight certain things that you know are going to be useful to help them go, yeah, I'm way too aggressive, or I'm not in line. So if you can do that digitally, and I know a lot of top agents, I know agents that sell over 250 homes a year that do it with their laptop, not a problem. The second is if you have a binding machine, you take all of these beautiful papers, you have a cover page, and you bind it together with a binding machine, and you have this available. Now, if you're not a seasoned agent or you're not really techie and you're whatever, I love this option because now I can pull this out. I can flip it, upside down. And I've learned to read upside down from doing this for a lot of years. And I can draw and point attention to certain things. And as I flip through, right, and I can slide it over and I can put smiley faces and frowny faces. And I'm like, this is what happens if you overprice, frowny face, woo-hoo, right? And I make it fun and interactive during this process, okay? And then the last part is you can just do a 3-ring binder. So you can print all of this out. If you don't want to get a fancy binding machine that makes a really cool little spiral thing that makes it look really pretty, just get a 3-ring binder, slide your cover page into the front, clip them in there, right? Don't get the big one, get the whatever 1/2-inch one. And now you've got something beautiful that you can flip through that still looks nice, that looks professional. that you can also leave with the seller if for some reason you didn't get your listing agreement signed, or what we call our onboarding agreement signed at the time of the close, or at the time of you closing. Okay, so those are packaging it. All right, so now let's talk about delivering it. Okay, so I'm going to share the digital brochure of this, and we'll talk about how to deliver the CMA. There we go, and we're there now. All right. So as you can see, this is from a company called Issuu, ISSUU.com. There's several different companies that make these fun, beautiful digital brochures. We also use this. I use this all the time when I'm delivering a market analysis to my sellers that are out of state, right? So they own a rental property. They're not here locally. I can flip through it easy enough on a Zoom and talk to them very easily. So the first thing we're going to flip over, and you're going to have your buyer attraction page. So I'm just going to go through and go to Neil. So first of all, let's talk about how we attract buyers. As you can see on this pyramid here, that market value is at, basically when we're at market value or below, we're going to attract the most buyers possible to create a frenzy to get your home sold. As you can also see here, when we go just 10% above market value, we're going to lose about 30% of the buyer pool. You go higher than that, you're going to lose even more. So as we start to go through these comparables, I want to make sure you're very clear that the whole point of pricing is to get buyers into the home so you can say no to any offers instead of not receiving any offers at all. Now that we've understand that, let's go into your property. So I know this looks different than a lot of your MLSs, but I usually have this highlighted, right? So I would highlight their beds, baths, their property style, the lot size, all that fun stuff. If there's anything else like barns and gazebos and all that, I have all that highlighted too, to make sure I'm talking about all of the accurate information. Then there might have 2 pages, right, of that. You're going to talk about their lot size, where they're located. You're going to flip through the aerial map and go, so here are the subject properties that we're actively looking at now. As you can see, the green represents the active homes. And if I need to zoom in, I can, right? I can do all of that for my fun people out there. I can, explain this. I also send this usually digitally after the presentation. Now, if I'm doing this online, do not send this ahead of time. Let me be very clear. The reason you don't want to send it ahead of time is if they see this and for some reason think that you missed a comp or you think that the comps that they're using aren't right, they'll cancel a listing appointment on you before you even have the chance to meet with them. So I never send this ahead of time, okay? Because you got to explain why you picked what you picked and what you did. All right, so now we've got our comps. You're going to have the MLS pages. Again, you can highlight these if you want with the subject properties, but we're going to talk through these. All right, now what I usually do here is I'm just going to flip to this beautiful single line stat page and I go, look, I've got all the comparables here, Katie, but I'm going to go to the single line stat page so we can take a look at this. And what I want to point out here and what we're going to talk about is on the left-hand side here is just looking at this based upon the comparables. So the 3 actives right now are at a price per square foot above ground at about $565 a square foot. The finished, they're at about $302, and they've been on the market for an average of days of about 117 days. Now, if we look at the pending properties, you see a big difference here. $492 a square foot, but on the finished, actually $306 a square foot. So these pendings have been riding about $306, which is great, but you can see how many days it took them to sell. You can see the original price, and then if they did any final adjustments before selling. So you can see here when you overprice, this one was at $585, reduced to $525, and we don't even know what the final sales price is. So this is just that pending price per square foot. But you would agree, right, Katie, that if you saw this property on the market for 41 days and it went from $585 to $525, Katie, are you offering them $525? Heck no, you're not. Of course you're not, okay? And then, of course, we've got the closed. So 517 on the above ground, 280 on the finished square footage, days on market averaged of 15 days, original list price versus their final close price, and the percentage that each one of these properties received, okay? So I know, and this is where this comes up, you had told me, and when we teach our Sold in 65 program, I'll talk a little about that here in a moment. You keep hearing me say that it's a program that we use to sell houses in 65 hours or less over market price. When we deliver that program, the first thing I ask my seller as I start to going down this path is, what's the initial asking price you'd like to set the home at? Like, what's the initial asking price? Like, if it was perfect for you, Anna, what price, you don't have to role play with me, but what price would you like to set the home at? They would be like, yeah, I mean, first of all, they're going to say two things. What do you think? And I go, it doesn't matter what I think. It's your home. How much do you want for the home? What do you want the initial asking price to be? Well, I guess $1.2 million. Okay, now I know. Now I know where their mind is. And I'm like, great, cool. If I know that that price needs to be at $1 million because of these stats here and everything I'm going through, when I get here, I can easily take their property and go $1.2 million divided by $280 a finished square foot would put your property at about $980,000. I know I'm just using a role play sample here. But when I show that to them, I'll write that number down, I'll circle it, and I'll go, that's what the closed are selling at. And it's taking them on average 15 days to go under contract. Now, what you're saying you want to be priced at is $350 a square foot. And you can see the actives are only at $302 and they still aren't selling. So after reviewing all of this data, Katie, what would you like to set the initial asking price at so we can create buyer activity for your home so you're in a position to turn down offers and not run the risk of not receiving any offers at all? And that's how this whole thing plays. Now, if this is printed out, it looks a little weird online, and I get that, and not say weird, but it's online, right? When this all plays out on a printed version, right, it's very beautiful. You're flipping through it. And usually this page is not on the final page. This page is separate. And then you have this page that comes out and they're like, well, Brendan, can't we just start high and come down later? You know what? Let's take a look. I want you guys to get the most money possible. Let's look at the effect of that when we look at this time on market graph. I go through that. So based on that pricing, if we were even to do that price, if we have to wait like these other ones, they're already at an average of 117 days. They're already getting on average 15% less. I mean, every single one of those actives, two of those actives has exceeded it. This other one, I guarantee you at 665, they were already at 665, adjusted it to 625 in less than 9 days. Katie, what do you think that's telling the market? So, and then again, I go into whisper, don't detonate the bomb voice. So I want you guys to be in a great position to win. So after reviewing all the data, what initial asking price would you like to set to drive buyers to your home? Now, right here, they're either going to give you a number, and if it's still crazy, you're going to go back and go, you either use your supporting comps and go, I get it, you said you wanted this, but let's look at this one. You said you wanted 385, but this one has carpet and yours has a hole in the middle of the floor with a raccoon climbing through it. I don't know, like we're a little bit different here. So you have all the supporting data to be able to have these conversations, to go back and use the pictures to support visually any of this conversation that you need to have. Okay. But you're going to live here and here. These are the most powerful pages that you can really draw to during this entire process. Okay. Now, with that, we've got, when do we present the market analysis? Okay. And it's like at the listing appointment, you're all like, duh, right? At the listing appointment is when you do this. Of course, at the listing appointment. What I want to explain is we deliver the pricing strategy after you have built rapport, completed the home tour, and are sitting at the kitchen table. Remember, the pricing strategy comes after your powerful listing program. So in real time, I show up to the house. And we have a whole nother class on how to do a perfect listing presentation in a program. But I show up at the house. When I meet the seller, they're going to ask to show me the house. I go, no, first I'd like to sit down and just confirm your goals with you, make sure I understand exactly what you want. I take control, sit down in the living room or any place. If there's no furniture, I go next to the kitchen or a fireplace or stand up wherever I need to be. And I go through and I start to build rapport by asking them all the questions from my seller profile. So let's go back through. If it's a perfect situation, when would you like to sell? All of these things. In that conversation, I have some techniques that we teach in our full program of how to build very quick trust and make sure that they know that I love them, because pricing, it's a matter of trust. If you didn't earn the trust in the living room, when you go to pricing in the kitchen, you are the enemy. I've got to go into this being the friend, and I'm here to help you so you don't make a stupid decision. That happens by earning trust in the entire first part of the appointment. Then I'm going to, after I've earned the trust, I'm going to tour the home. I'm going to take a bunch of notes. I'm going to do a full 360 of the outside. I'm going to come back in. And now I'm going to deliver our powerful Sold in 65 program, Colorado's most innovative home selling program, explain the process of how we do this. After they understand that program, I'm going to ask them, so now one of the things in our program is I want you to get exactly what you want. Anna, what is the initial asking price that you would like to set for the home? I take an order and I go, initial asking price, great. And I don't even, if they say a crazy number, I go, excellent, I write it down. Then I go, what would be the perfect closing date for you? Great. When would you like to stay in the home after the closing for any period of time? Excellent. Do you know how much you'd like to request for earnest money or the deposit that we're going to take down for that? We have a conversation. So the seller goes, wow, Brendan's just taking my order. I'm going to get everything I want on earth. Isn't this lovely? After I take this entire order, if the price is in crazy town, I'm going to go, now, I'd like to revisit that price. I know that you said for initial asking price, you'd like to set that at 1.2 million. I've put together a powerful pricing strategy. Would it be fair if we reviewed that for a moment just to make sure you understand all of the data? They always say yes. And now I pull out my market analysis and go, let's take the journey from crazy town back to reality land as smooth as possible. And when all of this is done, it's a beautiful, perfect symphony. We end up at reality town. After I finish that, then we go to estimated net sheets. Now I know their number. Now I have a very simple way to go through estimated net sheets in our program. And now I go and talk about what this is going to cost, how much you're going to walk away with, how much you love me, all of those fun things. And then the last piece, we call it in our world, right? We're going to take, we call it our onboarding calendar. We're going to take all the things to get them set into moving forward with the listing. And then the last thing we do is they sign a simple one-page onboarding agreement with us to list their home. Then I ask them for a key to the lockbox and a signature. They sign. I take the key, go grab my lockbox, throw it on the door, run down the street, do my happy dance because I just made $20,000 or $10,000 or $5,000 or whatever it is. I jump in my car, drive away as fast as possible, and it's a good day.